Hello, and welcome to our next step in our walking tour through the Bible. I think it's step 67. We're going to be looking at the judge Jephthah. And this is Judges 10, 11, and 12, really. But there's not much, there are only a few verses of great interest. Now, who is Jephthah? Well, first of all, he is, we're told quite boldly at the beginning of chapter 11, the son of a prostitute. And his brothers, who are legitimate sons of their father, drive him away, so he's sent into exile. However, when the Ammonites oppress the Israelites, they then go sort of cap in hand to Jephthah, saying to him, please come back and lead us in battle against the Ammonites. So this shows us how a judge emerges. Jephthah's the only person who can save them, and of course he lays down terms. They have to give him certain powers and so on. And of course this reverse ferret, as we call it in journalistic terms, this bouleversement, this we drive you away, but now we need you, please come back, is also mirrored by the fact that the people have apostatized from Yahweh, from the Lord, and then, because they've been oppressed by the Ammonites, they've gone back to our blessed Lord, cap in hand. And it says here in the end of chapter 10, the Israelites replied to the Lord, "We have sinned. Treat us as you see fit, but please rescue us today." Oh, yes, whatever you like. We'll make terms. Please, we need you now. Isn't that typical when we say we can do without God and then we discover we need him? And hopefully our pride doesn't stop us going back to God saying, we need you. Please come. Again, we decide we can do without certain people. And please God, let's hope our pride does not stop us going and apologizing, if you like, or eating humble pie and asking that person to come back. That's rather important. Anyway, Jephthah goes off to make war against the Ammonites, and he says that as soon as when he comes home, if God gives him victory, he will sacrifice the first thing that runs out of his front door. A foolish vow. And of course, as you can expect, the first thing that runs out of his front door is his own daughter, his only child. And he's very upset. He becomes full of grief, and he realizes he has to sacrifice his own daughter to the Lord. The daughter says, that's fine, don't worry about me, but just give me 2 months to go into the mountains to bewail my virginity, along with my companions, then I'll come back and be sacrificed. The sacrifice isn't exactly described, but we assume it takes place. Now, this little episode, and it's quite a small episode really, has attracted a lot of attention in the 18th century, for example. It was dramatized by several composers as an oratorio. I think Carissimi is one, but the most famous one, of course, is Handel. Handel's Jephthah is probably his finest work, in my humble opinion, but I'm not a music critic. If you don't know it, I would advise you to have a look at it. It just takes these few verses and turns it into quite a long drama, quite a long music drama. Jephthah's daughter is unnamed. Jephthah's wife isn't mentioned at all. You would imagine that her husband was sacrificing their only child, should have something to say. And the daughter of Jephthah doesn't seem to have a fiancé, although she does in the Handel version. And in the Handel version, God intervenes, as you would expect him to intervene, through an angel, telling Jephthah that he is not to sacrifice his daughter. After all, his daughter will just remain a virgin forever. So that's a rather Christian idea. There are various classical stories. I'm thinking of the sacrifice of Iphigenia by Agamemnon. That is one of the tale of the Trojan War. Now, what we've got here is clearly a crazy story, I think we can only say, because surely God does not ask us to sacrifice our children. Well, we do have the parallel with Isaac, where God asks Abraham to sacrifice Isaac, but then at the last moment says, no, that's not what I want you to do after all. We would expect God to intervene in this as well, and clearly those who see God as intervening to cancel the sacrifice are drawing on the Isaac story. What is happening, it's not even a test that Jephthah's going through. I think that what this is a much older story that predates Jewish times, which has entered the Jewish canon as a way of explaining what it is that young girls in Gilead get up to. Because we're told at the end of chapter 11, we're told, and hence the custom in Israel for the daughters of Israel to leave home year by year and lament over the daughter of Jephthah, the Gileadite, for 4 days every year. So it was the story is to explain some sort of feast. But maybe, just maybe, the events that the feast commemorates are actually a folk story that predates belief in the one true God. Because I can't really understand how the one true God could want anybody to sacrifice their child, particularly as it's very clear from early on in the Old Testament that child sacrifice is a big no-no as far as the God of Israel is concerned. And the reason why the Canaanites are so condemned and indeed to be driven out of the land is because they practice this abomination of human sacrifice. So this is not an argument for human sacrifice or child sacrifice or sacrificing your child. It's just an anomaly, I think, this story. What it is turned into is this idea that you must keep your vow. He's made a vow to the Lord, therefore he's bound by the vow of the Lord. He's made, just as incidentally earlier, the Israelites made a vow to Jephthah that they would give him all the powers he needed. He's made a vow to the Lord. These vows are to be kept. Pacta sunt servanda. That is to say, when you make a promise, you have to keep the promise, even if it seems catastrophic to do so, even if all the circumstances change. You must keep your promises. And of course, the biggest pact that is to be preserved is the covenant between Israel and the Lord, and also the covenants that govern normal human behavior. These are to be preserved at all costs. At all costs, which is, it's quite a strong message. Now, we ourselves know that we must be people of our word. We must keep our vows, keep our promises. And of course, the most important promise that most people make is the marriage vow, and that is to be kept. What this really tells us, this story, I think, and it's rather important, this, be careful what you vow. Jephthah is clearly very foolish to make the vow he makes. Let's just listen to that vow of Jephthah. What's he say? If you deliver the Ammonites into my grasp, the first thing to come out of the doors of my house to meet me when I return in triumph from fighting the Ammonites shall belong to the Lord, and I shall sacrifice it as a burnt offering. What a stupid vow. He was presumably assuming that the family dog would come out of the house wagging its tail or something like that. Although, of course, the Israelites didn't keep dogs. I know that. So it's saying, be careful what you promise. I think that's something we need to realize, and that means to say, so when we do make a vow, we need to prepare ourselves for making the vow. We need to try and look ahead to see what that vow entails. Jephthah is a stupid man because he doesn't look ahead. He doesn't consider all the possibilities. When you get married, for example, you need to consider all the possibilities that lie ahead. First thing you need to do if you're a man is meet your future mother-in-law, because that's what your wife's going to be like in a few years' time. And she needs to meet your father so that she knows what you're going to be like in a few years' time. In other words, you need to look to the future, but at the same time, the future is shrouded in mystery. And of course, it is a leap of faith, any vow that we make to the Lord. We are contingent creatures who make absolute promises, as somebody once said, I can't remember who. And Jephthah is a warning to us not to make vows lightly. It's a good story, as Handel discovered. Do have a look at the Handel if you like. It's a good story. It certainly makes you think. All the best. Bye.